Hi friends, Tracy here to tell you that making a podcast is hard work. There's research, scripts, editing, and all of that can mean a million decisions. Fortunately for me, my choice in a podcast hosting platform was easy because I decided upon Anchor by Spotify. If you haven't heard about Anchor by Spotify, it's the easiest way to make a podcast with everything you need all in one place. Let me explain. Anchor has tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. When hosting on Anchor, you can distribute your podcast on listening platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcast, and more. It's everything you need to make a podcast all in one place. And best of all, Anchor is totally free. Download the Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started on your podcast today. Welcome to CCC, dear listeners. I'm Tracy.
And I'm Brian.
And thank you for listening and tuning in week after week. And if you are new here, welcome.
Welcome. Thanks for listening. We really appreciate you listening to our podcast.
And of course, you can always check the show notes for all of our social media information, Patreon link, all that good fun stuff. And please make sure to leave us a review on your preferred podcasting platform, as it does help our visibility. And of course, tell a friend about us. Please help spread the word of this fledgling podcast.
Also, please tell your enemies, especially your enemies.
Well, scream it at your enemies. Yell, "This is a Crescent City crime!" So today we, of course, have promised that we're going to discuss the times when we visited Angola prison, and we're going to be mostly going off memory.
Yeah, such fond memories.
Yeah, fond memories. So what year did you go to see it? Do you remember?
Good question. Probably could have been 1992.
Okay. Wow. So that was 30 years ago now.
About, yeah.
Yeah. I'm sure that I went in 1998 or 1999 as my senior year of high school, and it was considered a field trip.
Oh, and you got there before I did.
If I went 1998 and 1999, that's after 1992.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I heard 89.
I would have been like 8 years old. I don't think they would have let us go to Angola prison as an elementary school field trip.
Maybe it would have been good. Maybe he would have been afraid to even snatch a pack of chewing gum.
No, see, my whole thing with the scared straight craze in the 90s was through watching talk shows, like when they would have, the wild, out of control teens meet up with the boot camp instructors who were going to take them to a scared straight camp or something. Of course, I'm sure it was all really just enacted for an audience. I don't think any of that was real.
I remember the movie Scared Straight.
Oh.
I saw it when I was a teenager on channel, it was a CBS. It was broadcast on CBS. And the most memorable part of it was the very end, when one of the students, and of course after high school, ends up in the very prison that his class visited. And he walks up to the very inmate who gave them the talk, and he says, "Hey, remember me?" And the inmate gives him this very stern, hard look, and then that's the end.
And that's the movie Scared Straight.
Yeah, that's the movie Scared Straight. So of course, needless to say, the inmate who gave him the talk was not happy to see him again.
I don't think I've ever seen that movie, but we are getting off topic.
Yeah.
And for the audience's information, I went straight from snatching gum from a convenience store at 8 years old to robbing banks at the age of 12, because Scared Straight did not work on me.
Yes, you were terrible. You were horrible.
I was. In fact, I'm recording this from a prison right now.
Yes, the COVID prison.
Well, not
the COVID lockdown prison.
Yeah, well, formally COVID lockdown prison, because now we're actually able to get out and back to life some more. So that's good.
Yep.
But we are joking. This is not being recorded from a prison. We are in the comfort of our living room. It's all fine. And I've never robbed a bank.
Neither have I. A story for another time, but during college I did work as a bank security guard. So I never robbed a bank, but I guarded one.
So what were some memories you have of going to Angola?
Well, it started with arriving at the college very early in the morning.
Yeah.
Because we had, quite a bus ride ahead of us.
Mm-hmm.
It was a chartered bus. I don't remember if it was Hotard or Greyhound, but that's kind of irrelevant. It was air conditioned and it was comfortable. And
well, we went on a big yellow school bus.
Oh, wow! For that drive.
Yes.
Maybe that was part of the deal for y'all.
Well, it was technically a field trip, and I've never been on a field trip wherein an alternative mode of transportation was allowed. Like, let's say if your parents were chaperoning, they couldn't just take you in their car to the field trip.
Right. That's right. School field trips are via school bus, of course.
I think they have to be.
But we were, adults in college.
Yeah.
And I do remember before they let us in, remember they had everyone get out of the bus.
Mm-hmm.
And a guard went onto the bus to check the bus.
Oh, see, I don't remember if that happened to us, but what I do remember is that we bought a lunch with us because we were not going to eat in the prison cafeteria, of course. And it's not like you could just go to a restaurant on the prison grounds or anything like that.
Or at that time, order pizza or order Chinese,
Yes.
You want it delivered where?
Yeah, you want it delivered where? Sorry, that's like 2 hours away. Because there's really not a whole lot in between the city and the prison.
No, there isn't. It's at some point it becomes a country drive.
Literally, yeah.
Yeah, quite literally. I remember we got a very brief view of the maximum security part, which of course was very dungeon-like.
I remember seeing the outside of death row. They pointed out the building. They're like, we're not going in there, but that's where death row is. And I just remember looking at it very grimly and thinking, oh, I'm glad I'm not in there.
Yeah, pretty much the same thing. And I was back then. I was very much pro capital punishment. So, and I'd already had my deployment for Desert Shield, Desert Storm. So I was looking at it with a pretty hardcore attitude and might say kind of somewhat sadistic attitude in retrospect.
Well, we all grow and learn.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. We all grow. Something, of course, inmates are supposed to do in a prison is grow past what they arrived at. And essentially, through a field trip to Angola, you can also start to grow past what you arrived at as well. Because, of course, the field trip is very eye-opening. I remember we saw, of course, some of the fields.
Yes.
Which looked to be, as I recall, pretty vast.
Well, it is vast. Think about, I think, what did we say, 18,000 acres that this prison is on? It's huge.
Yeah, and if you're going to feed a prison population with vegetables that you grow, it has to be
a lot.
Pretty much the size of a farm.
It has to be plentiful.
So right, exactly. So the Angola has a farm.
Well,
among other things.
Well, one of the monikers for it is the farm.
Oh, right. And we got to actually go inside. Well, you could call it a barracks. It resembled a military barracks where prison trustees would be quartered. You had the double bunk beds as well as the foot lockers.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. which of course is paradise compared to the hard part of the prison. For example, the trustees who work in the cafeteria, it was the very same barracks that that where they stay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we did have lunch. Our group did have lunch at the cafeteria. Keep in mind, this is the cafeteria for trustees and for employees
Right.
of the jail. Okay, this was not food that was fed to the general population.
Right.
And
What was it good?
The only thing I remember vivid was the cornbread, and yes, the cornbread was very good. And yes, we had butter for it, and but I remember the meal was enjoyable, and there were trustees who actually joined us for the meal and spoke to us, including the DJ, well, one of the DJs
Mm-hmm.
for the prison radio station. Had quite a personality naturally. Turned out afterwards we did meet him at the radio station,
Mm-hmm.
and we were each asked to say something to the inmates. Like there was one of the ladies in our class decided to talk in a sexy manner and compliment them on how sexy they were, and she was saying and all this stuff.
That's crazy.
And I'm face
No.
palming while she's doing this. She didn't exactly talk dirty, but she used the same type of voice
it was implied.
Kind of implied.
Yeah.
She was talking about how sexy they were and everything, and I'm face palming. And it's my turn.
Do you think she's one of those weirdos who would correspond with a serial killer?
It's quite possible. It's kind of bizarre the way there are women who were actually attracted
Not
to.
just women, though. It's a lot of people who are dark. I guess, though, if any true crime aficionado is darkly fascinated by serial killers and crimes and whatnot, this is why we're doing what we do, right? And this is why we watch all those documentaries and things. But to me, writing somebody in prison like that crosses a line I don't want to cross.
Oh, agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. And so when it was my turn, still being at the time in the Marine Corps Reserve.
Did you say you deserve to be here?
No, I did not want to be tactless.
Right.
I told them a couple of things. I said it doesn't matter anymore what you did to get here. What matters is what you do with your life after you get here.
Right.
And whatever it is you're trying to do right now, stay motivated and keep working at it. And that was, pretty off the cuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to say it was an eye-opening experience, and I actually did start to grow just a little more myself.
Right.
And probably because I actually, this is before I worked in the Orleans Parish Prison
mm-hmm.
for a year. So this is before that. So this was my first actual contact with inmates, and so that was. It was good for me to understand, okay, the fact that, yes, these are human beings. Yes, they are a lot like anyone. They're a lot like anyone who's on the outside of the prison.
Right.
In several ways.
And I also want to just add here that just because somebody is not in prison does not mean they haven't done terrible things. They just might not have gotten caught.
That's true. Now, of course, it's important to understand that I believe it's like 2% of the prison population are actually there for violent offenses.
Is it that small?
Yeah, it's that small.
Huh.
But keep in mind that's 2% of a prison population of millions. Okay.
Right.
So
that's still small though, but it feels like a lot when you are reading headlines every day that have not so nice news in them. Right.
They get all the attention.
Yeah, it gets all the attention.
Right. So then you think there's more of it than there really is. The majority of the prison population's in for simple blue collar and white collar offenses. But
does Angola house white collar criminals though?
It's a good question.
Oh yeah, something I couldn't really find. I didn't know if you knew.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but I do know that the DJ who was hosting us at the prison radio station and who had lunch with us,
mm-hmm.
He was in for a murder he committed decades before.
So he's a lifer.
Yeah, he's a lifer. But what was very eye-opening about speaking to him was that, given the path that his life was on, he knew it took him a little while to figure out, once he was sent to prison, that either he was going to be killed himself
Right.
on the street, or end up in jail, which he ended up in jail. And he was very glad that he did go to jail, because, in the decades he'd already been there for over 30 years.
That's such a long time.
It is. And certainly enough time for him to grow past the individual
He was when he got in
when
there.
he got in, yes. And yes, he admitted to us that, in jail he had to mature and learn and understand that there was another way to live your life. That, getting quick money by robbing people, nice pieces of jewelry by robbing people,
Money, cars.
right? That there was a better way to live his life, and he did find God.
So he's like one of those who might not be a psychopath?
Quite possibly. Yeah, quite possibly. Because one of those people where he'd have to tell you that he was convicted of murder and was an inmate in Angola. Like, if for some reason he was outside the prison and he had a conversation with you, you would think you're just talking to another radio personality.
Right.
Okay, that's how much he had learned, and that's how much he had grown behind bars. Because he came to reality. Well, what I was before I walked in here, I wasn't a real man. So he had to learn that. He had to learn everything behind bars. He had bad role models.
Yeah.
He wasn't able to grow on the street.
Well, what I remember the most vividly about Angola was the Red Hat prison block. They took us to go see that. And it was honestly one of the most terrible places I have seen on this planet. It literally is exposed to all of the elements. There is a concrete bed, so you don't even really get a proper mattress or even a pillow or even a blanket. You just have to be in this crappy, open aired cell block with a concrete bed. And there was the metal toilet that, when you look at it, you wonder how in the world could you ever be comfortable sitting on that thing.
Yeah, they don't have toilet seats.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's right. They don't really have toilet seats.
It's a big piece of metal shaped in the shape of a toilet.
And there's no bidet.
Right.
Right. It's just this literally a shitty toilet.
And there's no privacy.
Either. No privacy. Nothing.
Just like in the regular prison. That's something that pretty much hasn't changed.
Yeah. And now when I went there, though, that block was no longer being used, but it is a place that has stuck with me very vividly throughout the years as being someplace I can't imagine myself being, just so uncomfortable and harsh conditions. Because I'm going to tell y'all, the spring and summertime is warm, it's humid, and there's a lot of bugs.
Yeah, Louisiana's humidity in the summertime is brutal.
And the bugs. Like, let's not forget about that. Let's not forget about the fact that you're going to have mosquitoes feasting on you in those cell blocks. You're going to have to, you would have had to deal with ants, spiders, cockroaches, all that at once. You have no way to battle those things. You don't get a can of Raid.
You just have your fingers and your feet.
Yeah, that's it. And if you're sleeping at night, there's like nothing that they could just come crawl on you. And I'm really sorry if anybody who's listening to this just got creeped out. I'm going to stop talking about it because I don't like to think about it either.
Yeah, we saw that part of the prison too. It was very brief.
Yeah, it was very brief, and that's a place that just nobody wants to be there. Nobody ever wanted to be in there, and now that I'm really thinking about it, talking about it, and after the past few episodes wherein we've described the very rough conditions at the prison, it's even worse now in retrospect.
Yes, and it's by modern prison standards. The maximum security part of Angola is still a barbaric place to be.
Yes, and there's also this is going to be another topic for another time when we revisit Angola prison, but that's not even where they keep you in segregation.
No,
which is even a worse place to be. Now, did you go to the museum?
Yes.
Yeah, so did we. And I remember I bought a leather keychain with a T on it, like, for my name, Tracy. And I bought it from, I believe it was the prison gift shop, but it was made by an inmate.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. I believe it was made of leather.
It was made of leather.
Yeah. I bought one of those Angola keychains as well, and I bought a wallet, which I actually used for a while until
it fell apart.
Got lost.
Oh.
It lasted a long time. It was well made.
Oh. And I remember seeing like the display of the weapons that some inmates have made while behind bars, and I saw a gruesome Gertie, and I remember seeing the pictures of the portable electric chair on the back of a truck.
Yeah. Oh yes, yes. That would travel throughout the state.
It would. Ooh.
Yeah, gruesome, barbaric. That's come to think of it. That's it kind of reminds me of Saudi Arabia a bit. We won't get into it here, but time I spent in Saudi Arabia is pretty. They had barbaric forms of execution that were done town square style.
Do you think it's better now that we don't have public executions, or do you think it's worse?
I think it's better.
I agree.
Because some people would bring their children to it.
That's right, they would. It was just a family event.
And that's a horrible thing
to show children.
To show a child.
Yeah.
And I mean, quite frankly, I'm not going into it. Watching someone die is a terrible thing. And it doesn't matter what the reason for it is.
That's true. Well, did you have anything else? Do you have anything else to add to this? Any more memories of your day there?
Well, with the exception of the cafeteria and the gift shop and that trustee barracks, pretty much a brutal and barbaric place.
Yeah, that was kind of it. They didn't. Obviously, they can't show you everything at the prison. But I do remember looking at the beeline. I remember seeing the town. That's where all the Angola employees and families live. And I remember thinking to myself, I don't want to live there. It's too close to the prison.
Yeah, and there's given the culture of typical corrections officers, pretty mundane.
Yeah, and there's not even a movie theater. That's the one thing that town does not have.
Yeah, I guarantee you that town doesn't have a comic book shop either.
or a Wendy's.
or a gaming shop, So, yeah, wouldn't be my cup of tea either.
Yeah. But I do remember that we ate our lunches outside, like underneath a shaded patio or
Yeah.
something. I don't think it was where the prisoners have their outside time. It might have been in Butler Park.
Yeah, like overall, the scenery besides the maximum security part and and the parts of the prison that were no longer utilized, much of it resembled a military base.
Yeah, yeah, it does. And the front gates, like you go and you look up a picture of it, it looked very intimidating to me to be going through those gates. I was like, oh, I'm glad I get to leave.
Yeah, I think I'd rather try to sneak onto a submarine base than walk through the gates of Angola. Because I mean, if you get caught sneaking into a submarine base, then you're probably only just looking at federal prison.
Well, hold on now.
And you might even get a minimum security prison at that, if that's all they got you for.
Is that an automatic jail time though?
If all they have you for is trespassing, then it's not going to be a heavy sentence.
Well, don't do it anyway.
Right, exactly. Yeah, don't do it anyway. And of course, those of you who are military, if you don't work on the submarine base, you're not getting in general, or if you don't have business there. So you have to be cleared for secret and above to even go in there, and you have to work there too.
Well, we have been secretly recording this from our secret submarine base this whole time, listeners.
Yeah, submarines down the Mississippi River, of course.
That's right. We're in our secret submarine base underneath the river, and nobody can ever find us.
That's right. Even though it is Fleet Week in New Orleans.
You're right, it is Fleet Week.
And right now, as we speak, 2 Arleigh Burke class frigates, which are typically anti-submarine among their capabilities, and a French frigate and a Coast Guard cutter are docked in New Orleans. So anyone in New Orleans this week can tours start at like 1:00. Regrettably, I'm too busy this week. I've never been on an Arleigh Burke class frigate.
Well, we could try for next year.
It's every 3 years.
It's only every 3 years.
It's every 3 years, Fleet Week in New Orleans.
Oh, okay.
The port of New Orleans.
Well, then we'll try again in 3 years.
Julia Street Wharf.
Well, we'll try again in 3 years. Now, shit, I forgot what I was going to say. Oh yeah. So, Brian, is that all that you remember? Do you have anything else to talk about?
Nothing other than do whatever you have to do to stay out of Angola.
Or any prison.
Yes, or any prison for that matter. But quite obviously in the good state of Louisiana, Angola is the last prison you want to be in.
The allegedly good state of Louisiana. Yes, I agree with Brian. Please do your best to stay out of prison. And next week's episode, we are taking our monthly break from Murder and Mayhem. And we are going to discuss on our Coffee Talk episode a New Orleans icon who has recently passed away. We're going to honor the legendary Chris Owens.
He recently passed.
Yes, and so we are recording this the day after Easter, and yesterday's gay parade was in her honor.
Yes, the parade that she was supposed to to be in that was delayed 2 years. Annual parade she's in that was delayed 2 years of COVID. So unfortunately, she didn't live long enough to march in it.
No, but she had a very full life, and we're going to talk more about that when we come back next week. So until then,
if it's dark, if it's dangerous, and you don't feel safe, don't be there in the first place. And if you are not a witness to a crime or a victim of a crime, and you're talking to law enforcement, lawyer up.
And be safe, be kind, and don't park next to vans.